We have new information about the deadly shooting of a pregnant woman in Tallahassee yesterday. Arrest papers say she was the suspect's girlfriend.
Modern handguns are pieces of precision engineering. They don't just go off. To fire a round, you need a finger to apply roughly 5 pounds of deliberate, conscious pressure to a trigger. Yet on a Tuesday in Tallahassee, Jha'kari Martin-Sugrin looked a detective in the eyes and insisted the laws of physics simply didn't apply to him. He claimed that while he was tussling with his pregnant girlfriend, Mya Johnson, a loaded firearm tucked under his armpit accidentally discharged. He called it a tragic mistake. But as Mya's life faded on that kitchen floor, the room was screaming a different story. There were no powder burns on Jha'kari's skin, no torn fabric from the gun's slide, and most importantly, Mya wasn't standing where he said she was. Can a struggle exist when the ballistics proved the shooter never even broke a sweat? Mya Johnson was 26, a mother of 2, and a woman who had built an empire with her own hands. She was Cadence Mova to her followers, a lash technician who turned a small business into a community. She was 9 weeks pregnant with her 3rd child. She had everything to live for. Jha'kari, on the other hand, was a man who preferred restraint over respect. He admitted to police that he'd pinned her down before. He'd grabbed her neck until she couldn't breathe. But on October 27, 2024, the restraint ended. A single bullet tore through the kitchen air, striking Mya in the chest and ending 2 lives instantly. Detectives didn't just take his word for it. They handed Jha'kari a toy gun and asked him to show them. Show us how a gun under your armpit fires a bullet into a woman's chest without you pulling the trigger. As he fumbled with the plastic prop, the room went cold. His demonstration was physically impossible. The gun would have been blocked by his own torso. The mechanics of the weapon recovered at the scene proved it hadn't jammed or malfunctioned. It had cycled perfectly, chambering a fresh round, ready for a second shot that wasn't needed. A young mother and her unborn baby are dead because of a tussle that the evidence says never happened. Relate. Have you ever noticed how the most violent people always have a reasonable excuse for why their hands or their weapons ended up where they did? Do you know someone who explains away red flags as accidents? The problem is that when only one person survives the room, the legal system often defaults to their version of the truth. By the end of this video, you'll see the exact forensic reenactment that turned a manslaughter claim into a public outcry. If you're the kind of person who believes that a mother's life is worth more than a killer's accidental excuse, then hit the subscribe button right now. Most people will scroll past this because the truth is uncomfortable. But by refusing to look away, you're making sure that men like Jha'kari can't hide behind a tussle anymore. Subscribe to join a community that demands actual justice, or feel free to explain in the comments why you think ignoring these red flags is a better option. Stay till the end of this video because I'm going to give you 2 life-saving tips on how to spot the lethality gap before a partner's hands ever reach for a weapon. Welcome to True Crime Footprint, where we unveil the darkest mysteries and the most terrifying true crime tales. Kindly hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss any of our new stories. Your support keeps these stories alive.
Listen, I don't care who you are, how old you are, what you done. You could have marched with Martin Luther King. Who the fuck is you yelling at?
Success has a way of revealing the true nature of the people around you. Mya Johnson wasn't just a lash technician. She was a brand. Under her digital identity, she'd cultivated a life of financial independence, travel, and a massive following of people who admired her grind. But in the psychology of an abusive partner, that independence isn't a success. It's a loss of power. On October 27, 2024, the match was struck by something as small as a notification on a screen. Mya confronted Jha'kari about his interactions with an ex-girlfriend and his decision to like a photo of another woman on Instagram. Most people see this as a petty argument, but for Jha'kari, it was the start of a physical hunt. He didn't just argue, he took her phone. He hid it in the bedroom. He severed her lifeline to her business, her family, and her safety. Then came the conversation about the pregnancy. Mya was 9 weeks along, but she told Jha'kari she didn't intend to continue the pregnancy. In many domestic homicides, the victim's assertion of bodily autonomy is the ultimate trigger. He viewed that unborn child as a permanent anchor to keep Mya tied to him. When she said no, she wasn't just ending a pregnancy. She was ending his final piece of leverage. But here's where it gets really interesting. Most people assume a physical struggle is a two-way street. But neighbors on River Breeze Lane had heard this on-again, off-again volatility for months. They'd heard the slams, the shouting, the silence. This wasn't a sudden explosion. It was a predictable escalation of a man who had already admitted to police that he'd pinned Mya down by her wrists and legs until she couldn't draw a breath. When a partner hides your phone during an argument, they aren't just mad. They are taking away your ability to call for help. Have you ever been in a situation where someone tried to cut off your connection to the world? Tell us your experience in the comments. Your story might be the warning someone else needs to hear today. Type "Justice for Mya" to keep her name in the algorithm. Hit the like button if you believe that a woman's phone, her body, and her future belong to her and her alone. If you skip this, you're siding with the silent controllers who think jealousy is an excuse for violence. Don't let the villain of this story win by staying quiet. 10 minutes. That is the gap between the sound of the gunshot and Jha'kari's call to 911. He eventually drove Mya to Tallahassee Memorial Hospital, but by then, the accidental narrative was already being drafted in his head. When the Leon County Sheriff's Office Violent Crimes Unit stepped in, they looked past the tears and focused on the metal. They performed a trajectory reconstruction, analyzing Mya's height against the angle of the entry wound in her chest. The math didn't lie. Mya could not have been standing in the position Jha'kari described during their tussle. The ballistics suggested a spatial configuration consistent with a deliberate aim and fire scenario from a distance. Then there was the slide bite. When a semi-automatic handgun fires, the top part, the slide, moves backward at incredible speed to eject the shell. If that gun was tucked tightly under Jha'kari's armpit like he claimed, that moving metal would have chewed through his skin and the fabric of his shirt. But Jha'kari didn't have a single abrasion. The gun hadn't jammed. It had cycled perfectly, sliding a fresh, live round into the chamber. It was ready to fire again. Most people stop here, but what happens next is insane. Investigators handed him a toy gun to reenact his story. He couldn't do it. Every time he tried to show the gun firing from his armpit, the position of his own body physically blocked the trigger. He was caught in a lie that contradicted the very laws of motion. Now, there are some of you who still won't subscribe, even after seeing the physical proof that this was no accident. Maybe you think forensic science is just opinion, or maybe you're fine with missing the next deep dive into how killers try to manipulate the system. If that's you, go to the comments and explain why you're ignoring the evidence. I'd love to hear why the truth isn't enough for you. If a firearm is found with a fresh round in the chamber and no mechanical flaws, can accidental discharge ever be a valid defense? Or is it just a loophole for people who know how to play the grieving partner role? Despite the ballistics, the reconstruction, and the mechanical evidence, State Attorney Jack Campbell faced a wall. In Florida, to prove first-degree murder, you need premeditated design. To prove second-degree, you need a depraved mind. Because Jha'kari was the only surviving witness to the seconds before the shot, the state argued they lacked the physical evidence to refute his claim that it happened during a struggle, at least not enough to satisfy a jury beyond a reasonable doubt. They settled on manslaughter. This is the manslaughter gap. It's where a history of manual strangulation, the single biggest predictor of domestic homicide, is overlooked because the killer called 911 after the fact.
Listen, man, yeah, I'm a leader. Y'all surviving this shit.
I promised you 2 ways to identify the lethality gap, and here they are. The neck constraint rule. If a partner has ever put their hands on your neck, your risk of being murdered by them increases by over 700%. It is not a loss of control. It is a demonstration of lethal power. If they do it once, they are capable of doing it forever. The exit trigger. The most dangerous time for a victim is the moment the abuser realizes they are actually leaving or losing control over a pregnancy. If you are planning to leave, do not announce it. Do not argue about it. Get your documents, get your children, and go to a secure location before you say a word. But if you think Jha'kari was humbled by this second chance at a manslaughter charge, you're about to see just how little he cared about the lives he took. Is a 911 call a sign of remorse, Or is it just a tactical move to lower a prison sentence? Let's get a debate going. Is the manslaughter gap protecting the innocent or providing a safety net for the violent? Type justice for Mya if you think the charge should have been murder. Subscribe and turn on the bell if you believe the legal system needs to stop giving struggle excuses to men with a history of violence. By subscribing, you're helping us keep these cases in the spotlight. If you don't, you're letting another story like Mya's slip through the cracks of the system. Some people claim that a tragedy like this is a wake-up call. They say that after taking the life of the woman he supposedly loved and his own unborn son, a man would be humbled by the weight of his actions. But Jha'kari Martin-Sugrin wasn't looking for redemption. He was looking for an exit. In December 2025, while out on bond for the double killing of Mya and her child, Jha'kari was spotted by law enforcement in Hillsborough County. It should have been a routine traffic stop. Instead, it became a high-speed testament to his true character. He didn't pull over. He didn't surrender. He pushed the pedal to the floor, leading officers on a dangerous chase across county lines. This wasn't the behavior of a man burdened by an accidental mistake. This was the behavior of a man who the law, and the lives of everyone on that road, as obstacles to his own freedom. Detectives from the Polk County Sheriff's Office, backed by the Lakeland Police Department, eventually tracked him to a residence in Eagle Lake. They didn't take any chances. They deployed an abundance of detectives to bring him in, knowing his history of volatility. When they finally put the cuffs back on him, they weren't just arresting a traffic offender, they were catching a man who had spent his entire life fleeing from accountability. But here's the part that should keep you awake tonight. Mya Johnson was the 5th domestic shooting victim in that specific Tallahassee corridor in a single year. This wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a cluster of violence that suggests our systems of protection are failing long before the trigger is pulled. Mya was a mentor, an entrepreneur, and a mother who was silly, beautiful, and genuine. Her legacy lives on through her 2 surviving sons, who now have to grow up in a world where their mother is a headline and their father figure is a cautionary tale. We have to ask ourselves, was justice served by a manslaughter charge? Or did the system allow a man to weaponize a tussle because Mya wasn't alive to tell her side? Forensic science proved the shooting was a mechanical and anatomical impossibility. The only thing left is for the public to decide if we're going to keep accepting these accidents as part of the human experience. If a man flees the police while out on bond for killing his pregnant girlfriend, does that prove his original accident story was a lie? Or is he just a victim of a system he doesn't trust? I want to see your honest, unfiltered thoughts in the comments. We are reading every single one. Type justice for Mya one last time to honor her memory. If you've watched this far and you still haven't subscribed, you're choosing to walk away from the truth. The villain in these stories relies on people like you to forget. He relies on the silence of the crowd to keep his narrative alive. Hit subscribe, turn on the bell, and share this video with one person you care about. You might be giving them the exact red flag knowledge they need to save their own life. Our deepest condolences go out to the Johnson family and to Mya's 2 young boys. May they find peace in the community she worked so hard to build. Thank you for watching to the end and standing with us for the truth. I will see you in our next true crime story.